All right, this next video, and it's probably going to be the first in more than one video. This video is going to start the discussion of human attachment. Now, attachment is an emotional bond with a caregiver. And the textbook that I use, it says an infant's emotional bond, but you can have attachment outside of infancy. So I'm hesitant to use that specifier there. But it's an emotional bond, an emotional connection. We can see something like this in other species. In other species, we tend to use the word bonding, bonding with animals. Like we can see in certain species, like species of birds, like ducks and geese, we have something called imprinting. And no, it's not like in Twilight with the werewolf imprinting, because sometimes students are like, I've heard that word before from Twilight. I'm like, it's not the same thing. And if you don't know that basically they fall in love instantly when they see the love of their life. It's not that. All right, so imprinting in ducks and geese and other species, basically they hatch, and the first moving thing that they see, they imprint on it and they start following it around. And usually the first moving thing that they see is the mother that's been hanging around, taking care of those eggs, waiting for them to hatch. And so it's advantageous for them to follow this mother around. And because, she can teach them how to survive, how to be a goose, be a duck, how to find food, how to swim, and things like that. And imprinting is one of those things that has to happen very, very quickly. There's a set time frame when it happens. Human attachment is not quite so rigid. Human attachment, ideally, it forms in the first 6 months of life, but it can form later. It's more difficult, but it can form later. So, when did we start thinking about human attachment? When did researchers first start addressing attachment? Well, a lot of the work was inspired or got started with work that wasn't with humans. One really influential study was conducted by Harlow. Now, this study is a controversial study, so I do want to address that. I'm not going to focus on the controversy, but it is controversial, and you'll probably figure out why when we start talking about the specific study. But he worked with monkeys. I think it was rhesus monkeys, but they were monkeys. And they were orphaned. They were separated from their mother at birth. And he noticed this weird thing would happen. I know we see that too. My cat moved the curtains around, and now they're putting the light right in my face, and I can't quite fix it right now. All right, so the monkeys were separated from their mothers at birth, and all sorts of studies were going on at the lab where Harlow was working, but he noticed that the monkeys, they didn't like being isolated. They would go out of the way to try to communicate and get the attention of the other monkeys that were also in cages in the same area. And so they started lining the cages with cloth diaper material. They started lining them so they'd stay isolated. The idea is they were supposed to be isolated. He wanted them to stay isolated. And then they did this additional weird thing where when they would line the cages with the cloth diaper stuff, they would rip down the cloth diaper stuff and they would snuggle it. Does that make sense? Because at the time, behaviorism was very big at the time, and behaviorists had said that all of those children seeking out their caregivers' behavior, that what we would probably call attachment, they said that all can be explained by food. Why do they want their caregiver? Well, their caregiver feeds them. Why does a child want their mother or whoever their main caregiver is? Well, they associate her with food. It's a primary reinforcer. Food explains that behavior. Well, in Harlow's case, these monkeys, they weren't getting food, so why were they snuggling this soft cloth material? So he developed a study where he created surrogate mothers, fake mothers, kind of like dolls or figures of monkeys that look like monkey mothers. And he had different conditions, all right, but I'm going to focus on one specific. In one condition, you got to choose between two. You had two options. So the orphan infant monkey would be put into an area where there were two fake mothers, two surrogate mothers there. One of them was made of wire and had a bottle sticking out of the chest. So it would be not so pleasant to touch, but it had a bottle. It had a bottle, it had food. The behaviorist would say they're going to go there because they want the food. But the other choice, the other surrogate mother right next to it, had no food, but was covered in soft material like terry cloth, soft bathrobe, bath towel type material. Who do you think? Who do you think those baby monkeys tended to select to spend their time with, to cling to them, to snuggle, you might say? It was the cloth mother. In fact, they would spend up to 22 hours a day clinging to the cloth mother, and they would only leave to go to the wire mother when they were forced to because they were starving, because they were hungry. And they'd keep an eye on the cloth mother in some cases. They would rush back to the cloth mother. They showed a clear preference for the cloth mother. So Harlow gave us this idea of contact comfort. Contact comfort as something that can explain this preference that infants and children seem to have for their caregivers. You know, it's good to snuggle, it's good to hug. You know, it's nice to feel affection and warmth. All right, so that inspired some human researchers to talk about human attachment. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about the research on human attachment.